This came out this week. You see that July 24th. A judge sanctioned some lawyers who defending Alabama's prison system for using fake ChatGPT cases in filings. There were 3 people that were part of presenting their case used ChatGPT to write something for them, and they didn't proof it. They didn't look at it to check the sources, how authentic it was. And so those 3 lawyers have been suspended because they didn't do their due diligence. They used ChatGPT to help them, but it wrote the whole thing for them. So, and then the question I asked last Sunday was, what are the drawbacks for using AI for scholarly research? So I thought, okay, chat, I'm gonna see if you'll critique yourself. It said, AI models can be wrong and misleading or inaccurate answers. Secondly, AI cannot always accurately produce its sources. Sometimes it will use incorrect or fabricated citations.
Woke.
It's talking on itself. Here's the one thing that was mentioned in that article about those lawyers. AI tools may hallucinate, in quotations, generating plausible sounding information that is entirely made up. So, one of the key things that stood out to me was the dependence on AI reduces critical thinking and analytical skills. So the dependency on AI, it's got a use. It does have a use. And I'm not trying to just beat it up, but I will say that we have to do our due diligence. And that's something that we can warn young people or others who may depend solely on AI for their information. So,
Welton,
yes, ma'am.
can I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
I had a physical this week, which included an EKG, and that's it. And all of this, before the doctor could read it, he came in the room and he was very upset. He's marked through it. AI had read it and had diagnosed me.
Oh,
I have
goodness.
had a heart attack, and I was having one at the time of the EKG. And it said it. And that's what it looked like. Does that look like I was having a heart attack?
No, don't.
No, but that's what it said. He came in and he kind of, and said no, and I was like, I said, you need to say words to me now. Why are you upset? And then he said, because AI has read it before I could and has diagnosed you with a heart attack, and you're having one now.
Wow.
That's crazy.
How about that?
So AI is a couple of years old officially.
It's over now.
Well, I mean, it's been around, but they didn't call it that for a long time.
Well, artificial intelligence has been around,
Yeah.
but to have a platform, I don't know how long it's been around.
Yeah.
But we know that I'd say all the elements that could compose AI has been there.
Yeah. But they started calling it that.
How about
Wikipedia?
Wikipedia?
Yeah.
Couple, 3 years ago. It's just like humans. You ask a 2 or 3 year old, they'll lie to you. Did you get that cookie? Mm-mm.
Well, Keith does that.
You know, Trump this week made a declaration that AI had to cleanse itself of all the wokeness that had been ingrained in it.
Good luck with that.
Wow.
Well, see, that, and as you well know, it depends on who's sitting at the keyboard.
What you put in and what you get out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, what Nick was talking about military the other day, now I'm not permitted to say that, but I think it was at New Year's, you know, when they do the celebration and stuff. I'm not quite accurate, but I think it was Korea or China. They started doing these lights, and I'm sure, and all of a sudden it started coming up, and it was a missile sitting there with a, and apparently, and what concerns me is like what he says, you could take and show it as lights or not there, and all of a sudden it appeared. Because I think it's on, I don't know what, America's Got Talent, one of those shows, AGT, those people are they're changing from tigers to.
Oh, yeah, that's-
And all that stuff, and that has to be AI generated.
Yeah, it
and
is.
stuff, but that's what I'm talking about. They could sit here and give you the illusion that the missiles was not there, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden bring it back. I'm just saying that's one thing that concerns me, because if they can do that.
Yeah, we
They
had
can
to,
disguise it, but both ways.
for me, it's kind of like anything that we introduce into our Christian witness walk. Lord, sanctify this tool and help me to realize the limitations or what it may or may not affect the gospel in the telling, the research, whatever we're doing with, I mean, lights are great, but now we got lights twirling on the stage. Does it enhance worship or does it distract from worship? And so we want things to be in order. We don't want chaos. That chaos, in my opinion, the devil's not far away. And so anyway, but yes, it's just, for me, it's a constant thing to realize the influence that it has on our lives. And wow, that's something right there.
Yeah.
That's
That wasn't what
something.
I was expecting to go and be met with.
You already read it, Pam?
Huh?
You read it already?
Read the EKG?
No, you
No,
said that you,
the AI.
the report today, you had read that, and the doctor told you?
No,
No.
no.
Okay.
She had the printout laying there for him when he walked in the room, and he just sat down and he looked at it, and I'm watching him. And then he hits the table and he does that, and I'm like, okay, he likes Keith, I know. Maybe he likes me. Is he upset because I'm dying? And that's when I leaned in and I went, hey, talk to me. And he said, artificial intelligence has already read this, and they had, I think, 6 lines they had printed out. He said, you've had a heart attack, and you're in the process of having one now. And I'm like, oh, this is good then, because I feel good.
Well, if anybody growing up watched the Jetsons, George Jetson had problems with Rosie, the robot and stuff, things happen, so we've already been told. Even in Lost in Space, robot had issues too, so.
You gotta, oh, yeah.
You know, but if you're on the internet and you're doing, AI and everything, we as Christians just need to pray for discernment, to make
Yeah.
sure that we understand it and follow what is right according to God's will, but that's
Yeah.
what we need to do.
Yes, yeah,
Pam,
you're,
explain something to me, I'm not quite, why would AI be reading the thing?
Well, that's what I said to
I mean,
Keith.
why do they even take
I
and
said,
do that?
unless they have to have so much internet interaction because they send and receive records and all that, I don't know, I should have asked him that. Well, he would
But
have sure
that's, I
told me.
mean,
that probably is part of the program in the sense that it may generate some standard narratives after an assessment. You know what I'm saying? They could
I
have
didn't-
stuff
I
that's
didn't
plugged
ask him
in,
that.
and so that would be good to know. You can
Someone
report,
authorized.
we would like a note, report back to us as soon as you find out.
Thank you.
Somebody authorized AI in that program.
Yeah,
Someone put it in there and turned it loose, and there you go.
well, it's part of, in my opinion, is, I don't know. I'm just like the rest of you, unless you're in the medical field, you don't know. It's part of, I think it has a use in there, and it just kind of got out of the pen and overreached something,
I can say something, something that concerns me is because when I had broken my ankles and everything, that anxiety was about to just take over me, and I thought I was, my heart rate was just going out of sight and everything. So I went to CHI Memorial down at Hicks, and they done a CT scan and everything, and I had to wait in the, emergency room for probably 4 or 5 hours, and I said, what's taking so long? They said, we're having to wait for somebody to read your CT scan. Now, if that's being done by AI, what are you doing? They could be like Pam said, they could be misreading that, and you get a whole different diagnosis.
If they took that long, they were looking for a human to
Yeah,
look
they
at
were.
it.
Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
If AI is doing that,
Yeah.
that could be a concern to us.
I
Oh, yeah.
think most of your CT scans are sent out now. They've got somebody that represents that hospital, whether it be in Utah somewhere, and they're not in-house anymore. They're
Mm.
with- But you know, what you're talking about, AI, I think it can be used in the medical field. It goes, I don't know what this AI, but get enough information that if a doctor wanted to look up, they're thinking you have a rare case, that they could take and Google, you know, and if for the medical industry I'm talking about, or even not, then they could take and go through and see what symptoms are and see what maybe some prognosis could be or something, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. Let's transition to David, having Connor and, what's his name?
Sutton.
Sutton here. What's your middle name?
Sutton Bond. McCray.
McCray?
Kai Bond. And his is Kyle.
Okay.
Sutton Bond.
Okay, just asking, did you have is that a name that your grandpa or an uncle or somebody that
My
had?
dad.
Your dad? Okay.
I think they named him after McCray Dove on some doves.
Okay. Well,
Connor McCray, I mean, I think it's where they said it came from.
looking at David, I'm thinking, and it's important, what I'm trying to do, when I ask you for some pictures, to send some pictures, and I was hoping you could send them digitally, and we'd have some here that are not digital, but we can still look at them, is thinking about David. We'll get to him in just a minute. But we think about generations and where our ancestors were, people, grandparents, parents, where they came from. And so everyone has a history. Everyone has something to contribute that has influenced our story. And there's a trajectory, hopefully, that our ancestors had allowed into their life, which would be the God story, to influence which way that family would go. And so, as I look at pictures, the first one here is, that's obviously Tanya and I and her parents and Marshall and Dorothy. Everybody knows Marshall and Dorothy. Delbert and Sandra. Delbert and Sandra worked in ministry all their lives. Marshall and Dorothy, same thing. It's interesting things that they brought to the table, the influences and how they impressed our lives. It was Dorothy's was her granddaddy. I take it back. Let me think now. I think it was her great granddaddy. I can't remember who it was. Either way, she had someone that was in her family that gave the Vanderbilts a ride on a buckboard to view the land where the Biltmore house.
Wow.
She told us that late in her years. And so, and you never know how your life will interchange or cross. I just always thought that was an interesting tidbit. I don't know many people that met the Vanderbilts, so I always. This is me and my brothers and sister and mom and dad quite a few years ago. That's us with our son, our daughter, and son-in-law, and thing 1 and thing 2, as you can tell at Christmas. And then there's another one of us with Dorothy's sister is sitting beside her, Sarah. Sarah was older than her, and then Tanya's brother is in the picture there as well. And then we have a picture here by Peggy, submitted this one. Peggy, that's a lot of people that's in this picture here. You and Ken, I'm interested in, there's another picture I'm going to show you in just a second that I thought was neat. Look at that fellow right there. Is he cool or what? Cool. Yeah, look at all that young, youthful looking He-Man. And so you have, how many families are represented there? Brothers and sisters?
I got 4 siblings, and since that picture was taken, the family's probably grown that much more.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
That's his parents in the middle.
Oh, okay. Without pointing out the obvious, that picture got worn out right there on that one picture.
Divorce.
Divorce?
I used this picture for my book and she wouldn't allow me to put her in the book. And
Wow.
so I had to do that, and that was what I had in the file.
Well, see, for me, you know, it speaks what happens in community, even in families. We all have issues. Sorry for the person that had to get blotted out, but anyway, it makes my mind start to work a little bit. Here they are. That's Peggy and Ken
In the back.
in the back up there. Ken don't have the chin music yet, but, and so that's a nice looking group. That was taken around what?
That was in the eighties, and my mother's on the right in the middle. You guys remember my mother?
Yeah.
And then the ones in the front, it's one sibling in the front, a sibling on the left, and my sister Jackie, you guys have all met, she's in there.
Okay. And then we have some that was sent to us by Sandy and Nick.
Yeah.
And Sandy, tell us who's sitting in the chair here.
That's my mom.
That's your mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the day of my dad's funeral.
Oh, it was? Okay.
But then me, then Michael beside me, and then his two sons, so there were
Right.
4 generations.
Yeah. That's
Well, those
good.
boys have grown.
Yes, they have.
Yeah.
Here's another one of them.
That's 3 generations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was the last picture, family picture we had of Michael, his boys, before
Okay.
he passed away.
Yeah. Where was that picture taken?
That was at Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs.
Okay. Well, I noticed in the background, it looked like rock formation back there or something.
Beautiful place if you've never been.
Okay.
I like that one.
I like this picture here. It captures a lot.
That's
Nick?
his dad,
Yeah,
and Nick, our son Michael, and his 2 boys.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
that's good, I like that one.
Yeah.
And when you look at the different, in all of these pictures, you look at the various, I'll back up one time. We'll look at David's family photo in a second. Ron, you got some things right there that Diane has picked out. Would you mind giving us a little something about those, and we can pass, is it all right to pass those around? You have a big family picture there, don't you?
Trouble with that.
Yeah. Well, it gives people a chance to see. How many's, let's see, you've got 2 boys and a girl, right?
Yeah, and then their kids are in there. Our parents are not in this big picture. She had others, but they weren't very good pictures.
And the
then
two-
those little pictures there, when Chris got married, my parents and her parents were in these little photographs. Chris got married, and Chris didn't get married. That was Chris's wedding, not Heather's. That's at North Cleveland Baptist, that picture.
Okay.
You were right. About the arch, that's North Cleveland Baptist. Sorry. We about rewrote history there.
When we look at these families, we look at all these pictures, and we look at David's family photo. I took an excerpt out of Matthew chapter 1, verse 5 and 6. Solomon fathered Boaz by Rahab. Boaz fathered Obed by Ruth, and Obed fathered Jesse. Jesse fathered David the king. Now, it's interesting how we have Rahab is mentioned and Ruth is mentioned when we know that the Bible particularly would, females didn't get as mentioned as much, because you see Jesse doesn't say anything about Jesse's wife or Obed's wife. And so if we look at it, if we look at the progression of it, and we started at David. David had 7 older brothers, and here David is growing up. He has a dad named Jesse. And then it's quite possible that Grandpa Obed may have been around, like some of the pictures we've had. What kind of stories did they get swapped? What kind of influences they had on David? And then, of course, Boaz, his wife was Ruth. He became a kinsman redeemer. And Ruth has a book named after herself. What an interesting, I can see David asking Daddy about, hey, or have Grandpa talk. Tell us more about Ruth and all that, how things get passed down. And then, of course, you go all the way up there to when Salmon had married Rahab. And we know who Rahab was based on the story of her being in Jericho. And then, if you go before that, well, tell me, do you know anything about those who were born in slavery? How that impacted their life. And so, where does our story bring us to? Where did it bring us from, and where's it taking us to? And so our stories is important, because there are times our stories are going this direction and all of a sudden it goes off this way or goes off that way. And none of us are an accident. All of us have a purpose and an impact. And these two young boys back here, I'm glad they're in the class today. It may not be intellectually engaging for them. I don't have SpongeBob SquarePants or any other stuff that relate to those kids. What is it, the Paw Patrol? Is that it?
Bluey. What is it?
And who? Bluey?
Yeah, hey, but we don't have with them. Come on, bring out Udder.
Huh?
Bring out Udder. Udder.
Udder, yeah.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. Udder, I got Udder. We was talking about Udder the other night. We'll have to introduce these folks to Udder that don't know and have met Udder.
Yeah, you've missed it.
I don't think Karen knew anything about Udder either.
I think I was here.
Were you here? Did you learn about Udder?
Yeah, I think so.
He's been in hiding she's been in hiding. No, whichever. She's been in hiding for a while.
What does it identify? Yeah, really.
But when we look at the time of David, and we look at our own lives, in Judges, we get a picture of what the day was like, what the culture was like, what was going on when David came on the scene. In Judges 17:6, it says, "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did right with what was right in his own eyes." So,
That was said about Noah's time too.
yeah. So we're looking at, we're seeing the effects of those who don't want police, lawlessness. We're seeing crime, we're seeing violence, we're seeing those things. And so David, his family, they all saw this stuff going on. It was kind of prevalent in their area in the time that he grew up in. The time was uncivilized. It was rough culturally. They were surrounded by pagan people. They had the Amalekites who lived to the south, the Philistines to the west. The Amalekites were depraved, violent raiders. The Philistines they possessed iron. If you remember, in their oppression of Israel, Israel had access to bronze technology, not iron. And they would not allow Israel to have iron. And so they had the upper hand, if you will. But they were barbaric and they were cruel. Jebus, the place of Jebus, was later named Jerusalem. That's where God put them, took them, that place for them. It was north of Bethlehem where David was living and where he was born. The Jebusites lived north of Bethlehem as well as in the surrounding hill country. Even after God had given them, David had taken over Jerusalem, they still lived, the Jebusites lived in the surrounding area in the hill country. So the time came that when God had enough of Saul. And you see in 1 Samuel there, it says, "But Samuel said to Saul, I will not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being king over Israel." Drop into verse 28, just below there. "So Samuel said to him, the Lord has torn the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to your neighbor who is better than you." What words to hear. and go give it to somebody else, and they're better than you. That would be hard to take. In verse 30 there, 1 Samuel 15, Saul said, I have sinned, but please honor me now before the elders of my people and before all Israel, and go back with me, so that I may worship the Lord your God. A little note I've got there is Saul admitted in private that God had withdrawn his anointing from him and that he was no longer the king. Yet, Saul begged to maintain the appearance of being king. This is what David was up against, even though he was anointed by the Lord, and we all know the story about that. We'll get into that too also. So Samuel, he leaves Gibeah for Bethlehem. He's going to where Ruth's grandson is living, Jesse, and Jesse's youngest son was out tending the sheep. He was in for a surprise, and so was everyone else. Just a thought or two about that whole exchange when they came in there. You remember whenever Samuel had come to Jesse and he was been sent by the Lord to anoint a king from the house, someone that God was going to speak to him. You remember the story that the first son, when he come in, good looking, strong, all the things that, you know, you'd think, well, surely, Samuel was even thought that. He said, surely this is it. The firstborn. And we know the impact of the firstborn in a family. It carries to all through Scripture. We see the impact of the firstborn. How the firstborn is honored, how the firstborn receives the family blessing.
I think that should still be in place.
You think it should?
And even
in the firstborn. You tend to benefit from that, I take it.
Wants to.
And would have.
You would have.
Under old law, I would have.
Yeah.
What about us women that were firstborn?
There you go.
She's opening up a whole new can of worms here.
Well,
No, seriously, that's, well, I didn't say men. She brought it up. That's a good observation, Diane. That's good. We'll give you a gold star.
Sandy and
All
I
I
are
got-
both firstborns, so there's a clash of wheels there sometimes.
I lived in a house of all firstborns. I
That's
need a
true.
survivor medal. My mom and my dad were both firstborns, and then I had an older brother.
That's true.
It's
That
a
was
thing.
true.
It's a real thing.
And we had a meeting this week, some financial stuff at school. It was called Lunch and Learn, and had a group that came in, and they were talking about having the discussion with your parents or people when they're getting old about what do, how do we transfer, or take care of your finances and helping you and helping them, that kind of thing. Just having the conversation. And I later on, after the thing, I told one of the presenters, I said, there's one thing that you didn't talk about was strategies on talking with these older generations, sometimes people. I said, and she just looked at me for a second, and I said, my wife had two firstborns for her parents. And to try to tell them they need to share their information or we need to help you with their information, it was challenging, to say the least. But the Lord helped us. And so,
I think a lot of that also was the time frame that they grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, obviously. And then there's still, and I know some other family members that don't want to talk about death, don't want to talk about their death or their funeral or to what their wishes are or were. They just didn't want to do that. And you may not, sitting in this room, I don't mean to offend you if that's you. You may not want to talk about those things. It's a morbid conversation. However, I was talking to somebody a while back, and I asked them what they've been up to, and they said, well, I'm taking the burden off my grandkids, my children right now. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm cleaning stuff out and throwing it away. And I said, okay, hope that's a good thing. it was not a bad thing. Tanya's mom, she used to say, I'm cleaning out, I'm cleaning out, cleaning stuff out. And we weren't there and Tanya was kind of, oh God, what did she throw away? What did she throw away? And I thought, well, I got to get over there and see what she's done. And I said, I cleaned my closet. So I'm just walking around the house, where'd all this stuff wind up? I didn't see it in the trash cans. And upstairs behind the couch, where she couldn't see it, she put a bunch of stuff behind the couch. And I said, we're safe. It's still here. It's still here. Give us a chance to look at it. We got off track there. Jesse had David. David, in some better translations or commentaries, I would say, it was a common thing for the youngest of the family to take up the duty of tending sheep. And so he was doing what was a cultural thing for him to do. He was out there tending the sheep, doing his thing. And look how God had looked at him, had seen his heart. He looked past his stature, and he looked at his heart. Even back then, tending the sheep, there was something about his heart that God saw that he could use. And I think that a lot of times, in fact, I would say it'd be true, that if God could capture our heart, then the rest of us, our choices, our decisions, the things that we do will follow. And it'd be the right thing. We're doing the right things because he has our heart. Whether it helps us or it hurts us, we do what is right.
Well, let me ask you something.
Yes, sir.
You kind of brushed on this last week, I think, about David being kind of an outcast in the family. The Jewish people are Semitic, right? But it talks about David being ruddy complexion and light skinned and fair. And I was just wondering how that played into it.
I don't know. For me, when your older brothers and stuff are picking on you, just like Joseph. I mean, you don't help yourself when you come running in the room. Oh, I had a dream. You were bowing down to me. Come on now. You're asking for a punch in the mouth. David, culturally and him being ruddy, I see, if I'm correct, I seen him as a redhead or a strawberry blonde or whatever. I seen him as a redhead. I've always envisioned him as being freckled, whatever,
Wasn't his grandmother the prostitute in Jericho? David's grandmother?
His great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother, yeah.
So they had Moabite
But they
blood in their bloodline. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been a purely Jewish bloodline.
Yeah. So either way, yeah, but I see him being picked on. Hey, you're not of age in here to meet with the prophet. You're not of age. You don't belong in here just yet. And so that's just my take on it.
Would he have ever belonged?
Well, we won't never find out because we won't know because he wasn't of a particular age that, okay, well, who am I going to pass off tending the sheep to? Unless it's a young lady in the family or something like that. I don't know. But I don't think that may have answered your question exactly. Is that what you were intending? Yeah. Yeah. But God has a way of choosing, but at the bottom of it, what was said about him at the end of his life gives us a viewpoint, a little viewpoint of what God was looking at when he chose him.
Well, God always looks at the heart.
Yeah.
If the heart's not where it's supposed to be, then you're not where you're supposed to be. And in humans, it takes a lot for us to get and keep the heart where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because of circumstances around us, brothers, sisters, who, constantly beat us down
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Brother Ron.
If David had remained where he was, I think he was probably content to tend sheep. I'm just going on my assumption. But he was doing a good job at tending sheep. When there was danger, he eliminated the threat. That's written here. So he had a courageous heart. He had a big heart, even if he wasn't a big guy. But what made people sit up and pay attention was what he did in public and not who he was. Even though who he was allowed him to do what he did. If he had never killed Goliath, he would never have gotten past square one. If he had never run from Saul and kept holding the promise and believing what God said through Samuel, it wouldn't be recorded here. He kept holding because God said it, and he was close to God. But what he did made the public see that.
Yeah, it
Does that
stood
make
out.
sense?
He didn't seek recognition, but it found him. It
Because of
found
what he
him.
did.
But what he did, and for me, when I think about the things that he wrote, I'm amazed at what flowed out of him
Yep.
that he had wrote, that to this day we have an insight, a viewpoint of God for all humanity based on his own viewpoint. Yes, Brother Al?
I was trying to remember, do any of us know or recall how many of the Psalms he wrote and how beautiful, brilliant, prophetic, it was worshipful,
Yes.
awesome.
He was such a failure, but he always had the heart of God, even in his failures. And you can't get any worse than some of the things he did.
Yeah.
But God always looked on him as having a heart for God.
Yeah, when he didn't make a mistake, and we're getting down the road ahead of time, and that's okay, is he goes and cries out to the Lord after one of those big mistakes. Don't withdraw your spirit from me. It's that heart. That's that heart for God. Yeah.
I think the main reason that God chose him was, even though he wasn't perfect, when he was confronted by the prophet about his mistakes, and there were several, not just Bathsheba, but when he took a census of the people, and the prophet would come and say, you shouldn't have done it. He was always quick to admit and to be contrite. And that's something that's lacking so much in leadership today, is that ability to be contrite, to get rid of the pride and say, I was wrong. You just don't find that.
Yes, Karen?
One thing that I've always thought was interesting about that is, when you think about it, that is one major thing that set he and Saul apart, is David would repent and Saul did not. And, while David sinned, he didn't have the kingdom taken from him, but Saul did.
Yeah. Well, the answer to your question, 73.
73 Psalms.
Sandy just looked it up.
That's AI approved.
I was gonna say.
A circle is.
We'll replace you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, Rick, go
Did
ahead.
Saul get to see, David get to see the temple completed that Solomon built?
No.
No.
He's like Moses.
He didn't get to, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, let's transition to prayer requests. Do we have any prayer requests or praise reports you'd like to give?